Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Bill. We're back.
Yes. It sounds rehearsed, doesn't it? But it isn't.
But it's felt.
It's
heartfelt.
There we go. Our topic this morning is You Are Not Alone. You know, Gary told me the topic, and when I brought it back here, someone said, "Oh, but you just did that a few months ago." No, we did We Are Not Alone a few months ago. Yeah. Which was about aliens. That's not what this topic is about. So.
Or someone was engaging the royal we.
Yeah, there we go. You know, I've often thought that the human body is not the most beautiful body on earth, but what do you think? Huh? You want to look like that? The cutest things around? Really? Isn't that amazing? And they're not alone either. Go right ahead.
Actually, as usual, we don't know what we're going to talk about specifically. And so it's always fun to get cues like this, because You Are Not Alone in the front page is a group of little chicks. And I think that's when we actually feel not alone and have a sense that we are supposed to not be alone. But as we grow up, we get a sense of being quite alone, separated from God, separated in families in terms of some of the appropriate dysfunctionalism that just goes on. And so we keep reaching out. Those of us who have raised children are aware that as from birth to maybe 4, there's a sense of constantly reaching out. This, wanting to be picked up, wanting to be cherished, wanting to be safe, protected. And as we learn that you're being too needy, or get over it, or why are you losing control and feeling so much? Why are you tearful? Why are you so sad? You know, it doesn't need to be this way. We start to distance from that naive place of this and an instinctual sense of together, and constantly feel more and more pushed aside and alone. And so as we intellectually or rationalize or think of being connected, whether to others or even to God, it's an experiential sense that has to go back. As you always say, I love the quotes you do all the time, you have to become like a child. Mm-hmm. Not childish, but to drop back to that sense of real, deep, authentic vulnerability of connecting.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that happens to us as we go from childhood to adulthood is we adopt the sense of becoming. You know, we're sort of taught by the adults around us, well, you have to become an adult. You have to be educated. You have to understand relationships. It's as though you're not complete. You know, the sense of being incomplete basically puts a stress on us. You know, do you remember, maybe in high school or college, you know, you're coming to an end of a particular period, you're going to transition into something else, and there's that sense of, you know, inadequacy maybe, or how do I get a job? How do I be in this world? You know, that means that somewhere in those years, a sense of having to become something other than what you are has been established. And that's exactly the opposite of the spiritual journey. That's what has to be undone. Because the spiritual journey is about becoming what you already are, which means there's nothing to become. Whew. Now that's a relief. But will we remember it 5 minutes after we leave the room? That's the thing. So the reason we're not alone is because we already, you know, take the words human being, huh? That's what we label ourselves. That's what it should say on your tag there, right? Human being. You can't have a human being without being. What is the being? What is the being? Obviously, it can become human, but They can become chicks too. What is being? Being is beyond human. It's transcendental. And we already are it. So the struggle to become is very defeating. It's an illusion. You know, we work so hard to get our degrees, and we work so hard to have the family work and so forth and so on. And all of that is an illusion. It's a practiced illusion. It achieves something. That's the illusory part of it. It seems to achieve something. But truly speaking, when you get to the stage of life, you know, the Hindus have 4 stages of life. When you get to the forest stage, which is the last stage, that makes no sense at all. 0. You've been struggling to be something you already are. You're being right now. That takes a kind of relaxing into. You know, it's not something that you can logically do. It's not something that someone can do for you. But you already are. And the thing you are is life. And life transcends all of the forms that it takes. Wow. This has lots of practical implications, but I think it's a good way to start, don't you think?
It brings up so much. I have to filter out all the things I was going to say. I almost want to start writing things down. I love how we trigger each other that way. It's what makes it so much fun. What you're talking about is absolutely the essence of everything. And what I tell my patients when I work with them is, enlightenment is easy. Getting there is horrendous. Because the deal is, what you're talking about is the end result of all the work and getting to that place of enlightened self. But the work to get through all that, when we're brought up to become something, to be enough, to be accepted, to be included, to prove ourselves, is the essence of the very Western society, sadly, we grow up in. You know, I never really noticed the mission statement before till I was saying it today in terms of our topic, and I went like, whoa, oh my gosh, there it is. That spiritual awakening cultivates a sense of self in the individual, and I would say the authentic self, that lies beyond the personality. Well, isn't that the rub? We have to let go of a great deal of the personality. Now, in order to chop wood and carry water, we have to pay our bills, and we have to have money to pay the bills, therefore we have to work. So yeah, that all is so. But we're brought up to believe we're something, and what you were talking about is that we are actually one, someone. That we have to let go of all that trapping, which is so hard, because the ego and the personality go, whoa, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Your desire and goal is to become nothing and let go of all the work I've done to create this dysfunctional trapping?
Right.
Shame on you.
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
And what do people do with that? We judge ourselves. What were you thinking? What's the matter with you? How could you do that? You know, no one's going to understand. Blah, 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 blah. And it's all that hammering that we have to let go of to pursue nothing. Because in nothingness, in engaging then the quantum field, we engage and connect to everything. And it's both on the spiritual and personality, because we are both. As I often used to say in the circle group, unless someone's got a shaved head and wearing robes, we got a lot of work to do. So all of us still do. You and I, everybody, still have our work to do. And so therefore, it is both. We have to let go of that deep sense of being alone and drop into the personality that wants so much to connect. But in that deeper place, we have to be vulnerable. And what does society say about vulnerable? What's the matter with you? Why are you being such a wuss? Get over yourself. I can't believe you're whining. Instead of saying, as children do, I need. I'm fed, I'm clothed, I'm fine. We can be at Disneyland. But I still want to be picked up. I still want to be connected. because it's just what we need more of. People I work with hear this all the time. We just need more. And we're not too needy to need more. Mm-hmm. It is the essence of us. Mm-hmm. And then as we drop there, then we get to express and step into that spiritual connection to, as we say in the children's song, God in me, as me, is me.
That's right. The spiritual connection, yeah, that's it. The thing about being is that it doesn't do much good to think about it. You know? You get these fancy phrases. Oh, there's only God, and God is this, this, and this. You know? That helps the mind calm down a little bit. But it doesn't get the spiritual connection. The spiritual connection comes through feeling. That's what spirit means. It's an ancient word for feeling. It means a heart-level thing. Huh? So the being we are, the presence that we are, is a feeling in the heart. And the mind's dysfunctional way of becoming,
yes,
produces exactly the opposite of that. You know? Because if you're going to become something, then of course you're going to be not that person and not this person. You're creating separation, which is aloneness. See? So these everyday thoughts that we have, and there are multitudes of them. You know, you say, can I turn it off? These thoughts about separation, aloneness, distancing, and so forth, having other opinions, they don't really accomplish much, except there's an inherent suffering that comes up in that. That sense of aloneness has a suffering in it.
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes I say to myself, all right, what do the great beings teach? Because obviously they have achieved something. What is it they've achieved? That sense of not being alone. They have that sense of being one, as you pointed out, the word one, with all. So how do they do that? You know, what they give us is these extremely simple practices. They're not mental practices, folks. You know? Meditation, oh yeah, you may sort of start it off mentally, but it goes immediately into a transcendental experience, right? Something that's beyond words. You go into this stillness, this absolute peaceful stillness, which, you know, if you look back at your mind, oh no, the mind's arguing about all the things that are unresolved and so forth and so on. The stillness, what is it for? Where does it come from? What is it? That's your being. And your being couldn't care less about what's going on in the world. You know, it's in bliss all the time. Well, what else do they teach us? Well, they teach us, I think Karen mentioned, and today she mentioned chanting. There's a little bit of mind in there, but not much, right? What do you have to do? Remember the words. That's it. And when you start chanting, the first thing that happens is your heart opens so that you can start feeling the chant. I think the name we used for that a few weeks ago, a month or two ago, was interoception. You actually feel the vibrations of the chant within yourself. So it's a feeling nature. And prayer is very much the same way. I mean, if you don't get to a feeling in prayer, then ask someone to help you. You know, because that's what you're supposed to get to. And what is this feeling? Well, Jesus called it the Holy Spirit. All right? The word holy has something to do with wholeness. Wholeness means excluding nothing. It's the feeling of the one that I am is the one that everyone is. You feel at home in the universe, so to speak. You feel as though this oneness is a real thing. And then, you know, all the worries of the ego just don't seem to have any meaning anymore. They don't bother you anymore. Shreya was mentioning that the world actually changes as we change. And you say, how can that be? The world is the world. No, it's not. We experience this world according to our innermost nature, according to our feeling of who we are. Once we touch that feeling, the world does change. We walk down the same street, but the people are beautiful. Same things happening at work. But look, compassion arises. And compassion sees that all human beings are simply trapped inside a cage. That's all. The cage of their minds. And you love them. That's the way to help them. You love them. All of this comes out of that one feeling, the feeling of oneness. So the spiritual journey is a journey back to the feeling in your heart that you already have. Not far to go. Yeah.
And yet actually it's huge and far to go, because so many of us don't allow that place. The yin-yang is such a deceptive trickster. When people are working with me and start to get into a deeper space, the words that come out are, they tell me they had these experiences of feelings during the week, and what do they say? Oh, last week I lost it. Last week I broke down. Last week I lost control. That's what keeps us from the heart, because there's such shame built into going there. That tearful, sad weeping is somehow a betrayal of appropriate living and being and communicating and exchanging and relating. So that the thought of going to really the heart, not thinking the heart, not showing up with a good Valentine's card, real heart, depth of dropping into this space that says, I'm open and I'm available and right here. And how scary that is. And yet each day, as you were just saying, that was, because I don't know if people really log it, as you just mentioned it, when you are sitting in meditation. And I've even mentioned this because we drop into a place like that we used to do in circle group. And I'd say, feel the energy right now. It's completely connected. You're not in insecurity. You're not in one-upmanship. You're not in fear. You're not pointing a finger metaphorically at yourself. In that quiet space of meditation, as you said, you are in the all of nothingness. And is there anyone, I mean, maybe at times there might have been some dark side of the force that tapped you on the shoulder, but in general, when you're meditating, does anyone start screaming and going, oh my God, it's so frightening and it's awful and terrifying and oh my gosh. Now, in week-long retreats of silence, maybe, but in just where you really have to attend to yourself over time, meditation for the most part is not scary, and yet our personality runs for cover. Just goes like in the wrong way, oh my God, and a sense of it not being okay. But in that place of oneness, you've given up personality. You can't find those identifiers in that place. And what your mind does, of course, when you start meditation is, again, the yan of that, which is all the chatter. Got to pay bills. What about that relationship? How'd you deal with your kid? Oh my God, the car needs maintenance. What about that stress I had at work? Blah, 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 blah. Till you have to go, okay, enough. I get it. You know, you try to distract me enough. And you bring a mantra in or you bring something in and quiet all that down. And drop into that deeper place of self. And in the spiritual place, the interesting shift is, or actually conflict is, that it's peaceful. When we drop into the vulnerability of self, it's not peaceful. It scares the heck out of us. Because it really is vulnerable, and we've been taught that vulnerability means, especially as guys, attack, leaving your guard down, you're going to get hurt. Typically, vulnerability is meant annihilation or abandonment. Because you're not drinking the Kool-Aid, you're expressing who you are, and nobody wants to hear that when you're 5, 10, 12 years old, and definitely not as a teenager. And so, as we drop into that deeper below the personality, it's terribly frightening. I know my own fears about that, having done my own work, and I say with the people I work with, I said, this is not fun, it hurts. And they're like thinking metaphorically. I go, no, it really hurts. because it's a pool fraught with alligators, because it's never been invited. And when someone really, and you can't do this alone on the personality basis. I'll say to my patients, go ahead, sit in front of the mirror and cheerlead this, see how it works. And they go, it didn't quite work, it doesn't get in there. I go, no, I know. Because like a child, you have to have someone go, I have deep interest in you. Mm-hmm. And I'm here and I want to really connect. Mm-hmm. And I'm feeling you and I want to share that.
That's beautiful. Really nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, the word invited, I love that. Yeah. Because I'm going to go back to the Christian teaching now. If you look at what he taught two things. First of all, love God in you. Second, love everyone else. That's it. That's all he taught. But then he taught, how do you love God in you? And he did it by experience, by showing people his experience. He said, I have God as a father in me. And it was a love affair. He was in love with the Father within him. He invited the Father to dwell in his heart. And then the Father invited him to come home. Prodigal son story.
I was just going to say, I've heard this story.
Yeah, it sounds a little familiar. Right?
I think we talked about it even.
Right. There's a story in Hinduism that is the Hindu version of the prodigal son story, but it has more in it. The Hindus gave you a little bit more. So this king has a son, teenager, who's very precocious and thinks he knows everything. I mean, that's what teenagers are about, right?
I've heard that.
Yeah. And so he says, okay, this kid needs some experience. So he sends him on a trip around India, just to visit various ashrams and cities and people and so forth, thinking that, on a trip, he'll grow. He'll learn something. And he comes back, and he's worse than ever. Yes, he met the monks up there, yeah. They're so dumb. I knew that stuff years ago. Yeah, he has that kind of arrogant ego. And the father says, what am I going to do now? So there's a sage, and his name is Vasishta. He's one of the great sages of India, and he lives in that area where the family is. And so he calls Vasishta and he says, is there anything you can do with my son? And he said, send him over, I'll talk to him. And he talks to him, and the conversation doesn't go on very long. He just asks him some questions and causes the boy's mind to absolutely stop. He can't answer those questions. And so finally, being an intelligent person, he says, would you be my teacher? He invites Vasishta to be his teacher. And that creates one of the great scriptures of Hinduism. It's called the Yoga Vasishta, which the great beings, modern great beings, have said is the most accurate scripture in the world about spirituality. By the way, the boy's name was Rama. Yep. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Yeah. He became enlightened, and he also became a king in India. So it worked. The process is identical to the prodigal son process. What happens? The father sends the boy out into the far country to learn something. What does he learn? Not much. Doesn't get it. Can you see the parallels here? You and I have been sent from an ocean of bliss into a prison of sensory-based mind. That's the far country. It's what we're in right now. Okay, it's our mind's concepts about what this reality is. That's a prison. Okay? Is it nice? Is it fun? Well, not always. As a matter of fact, very little. And there's problems here, and they're self-created problems. As Gary says, shame, guilt, these kinds of things that the sensory-based mind produces. We need to go home. And it's not too early, nor is it too late. What do we do? Exactly what the boy did. He remembers his father's house and calls out to the father and says, come get me. That's exactly what Jesus was teaching. He said, I have a Father in the heart, and I don't do anything he doesn't tell me to do. In other words, there's a union there. He listens very carefully. He's being taught moment by moment about what is the right action to take in this world. So it's a kind of dual invitation. You invite your own being into your heart. Don't try to figure out how it's going to do this. How are you going to figure that out? Now, this thing created you. You think it can't come into your heart? That's ridiculous. Of course it can. It will enter your heart. It will enter it in these moments where all of a sudden you see things as you've never seen them before. These moments that can't be accounted for. Maybe you're walking by the ocean and suddenly the ocean becomes you, and you are the ocean. And you see the people in the world as being waves on the ocean. These kinds of experiences just happen. So you invite the Father into your heart, and the Father invites you back home and takes you back home. That's the method of Christianity. It does require a conscious choice, a conscious invitation.
Yes, and it takes courage.
Yes.
It is that part of stepping back, because the far country, in essence, for me, when I talk to people I work with, is that everyone's doing the best dysfunctional dance they can.
That's correct.
And, all the world's a stage, and it's like you see that play every day. And the more you work at undoing that, which takes courage, because you have to, again, let go of who you believe you are and step into a place that most people aren't really happy to see you go. For instance, the rescuers in the group, you start to own your own truth, and people who've always been taking from you, they're like, I don't understand. What happened to you? You always listened. I told you what I needed, you gave it. I told you I needed you to show up, you showed up. And all of a sudden you're just standing still and wanting to be loved? Like, what's up? And what a lot of the people I work with say after a while, they go, Gary, this isn't a lot of fun. I go, well, I know that. And they go, well, but it's more than that. I'm losing all my friends. I said, well, check into who your friends are. You've been creating them from the old chapter of the dysfunctional dance. Yeah. And so as somewhere along the line, even if it takes up to transitioning out of life, you hit a wall on which these things don't work anymore. And the dysfunctional dance is just that. And you start to have the courage, as you're saying, to drop in. Mm-hmm. And even in the prodigal son example, his father had to come out to meet him. Right. We have to have someone come out to meet us.
Exactly.
To reinforce that what you're doing is okay, that they'll meet you in that depth, that they'll meet you in those feelings, and validate that what you're doing is a good path, because so much society doesn't want to hear it. And if you're unsure of that, as Bill said earlier, check into yourself about 20 minutes after you leave the center today. I bet you won't be so centered. The world is not about inviting that. And what you do is if you can sit back as you start deepen, you drop into that place, as in his Father's home, of being in the audience, like here, watching the play instead of being in the play. As I started doing that, I was getting so sad, because you keep seeing the dysfunctional acts going on. And then after a while, I just had a chuckle, because it's so ridiculous. It's people just keep bumping their heads over and over again, making these accusations and one-upmanships and jealousies and ridicule statements and, what's the matter with you? I mean, I even had something happen the other day. I was taking my dog to check out a new dog sitter, and I missed the house, and I said, well, is it the orange one at the end of the block? She said, no, it's beige unless you're colorblind. I went, I don't know, my dog's going to be happy here. Because if that's the shame you drop into with just my checking out where you are, that energetic will not work for me, and I don't really want my dog around it that much. And I'm sure she meant nothing by it, because we're so unconscious to sarcasm and shame. As guys, we do sarcasm all the time. There are 3 guys standing around, one guy's not laughing. because sarcasm is been introduced to men as a funny way of relating. And what it really has is a hard hit that's very honest and painful, always.
There's a lot of anger in it.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge. And it was like, so I just watched the play. I just keep watching how people do this dysfunctional dance, and I'm just like, ooh. So it's like a lot.
Yes, it is, absolutely. But you know, this serves a purpose. These people, the dog sitter, citizens in the far country, in the prodigal son story. Okay? What are they there for? To make it so bad that you'll go home. Seriously. Seriously. No, and that's the only sane way of looking at it. You know, that they're like road signs saying, turn around and look within. You're not going to get it out here. You know, this is the help that the inner being gives you. You know, remember to go within yourself. Remember to see the light within your own heart. Remember to find the love you need in yourself first. Then it will demonstrate itself out here. But it's there first. Okay? This is what the far country does. And in the story that Jesus told, you know, he finally got to the point of almost starving to death. And that was it. That jogged his memory of the early experience, the transcendental experience that happens even while we're here in a physical body. You know, the first year, we're very transcendental. We're very oceanic. Everything that comes to us, we think is us, we put it in our mouth. Eat it. That's the way kids are. You know, we actually have existed here in a transcendental way. We were just not conscious of that is the blissful way to exist. So, the far country serves a purpose. You know, it's not to be thrown away because the ego is usually so well established by the time we get to the maybe I should grow spiritually stage, that something has to wear down the ego's habitual, almost neurotic way of being. And that's why these events occur. You know, look inside. Look inside. I think one of the most effective processes that I know of from the last century, it was Ramana Maharshi. He said, just do some self-inquiry. Self-inquiry means ask. Don't assume you know who you are. Ask who you are. And he would say, here's the line. This is what you use. He says, this is all I ever do. Who am I? Who am I? That is an invitation to your inner self to say, come on out. Come on out. I need to see you now. I need to feel you in my heart now. Who am I? Who am I? Such a simple thing. You know, I think this is a crucial point here, is that the spiritual journey is not complicated. Don't feel that it's complicated. It is utter simplicity. It is so simple that the ego really takes affront to it. Yeah, that's too simple. Yeah, here I've woven all this complex personality and education and role-playing. No. Who am I? Takes everything, all the trains go off the track then. Yeah. Who am I? Very simple, very straightforward.
There's a process to that makes it, though difficult as you step into that, you have to have the courage to sit with the answers. Adishante was on Oprah on her Sunday Soul Talk and said that he committed early on to he was going to pursue enlightenment no matter what it took, no matter what it meant. And he said that the first, I think it was 2 years at least, he was in agony, undoing all those definitions and understandings of who he was very painful. Mm-hmm. So it is a courageous walk. It is being a spiritual warrior. When you get there, it's very interesting. You kind of go, God, how come I didn't know that? You know when you have an epiphany and your whole body goes, what? Oh! And it's not an intellectual. Your whole body goes, oh, of course. But how long did it take you to get to, oh, of course? It took a lot. It's the undoing. And it's scary. And you have to have the courage to go, no matter what the answers are, I'm going to sit and work with them. Because we are all here to learn lessons. It's not that you failed, that somehow at 3 you got off the spiritual track and started getting into a personality. We are here to learn lessons. So there is this part from like 18 to whatever of undoing the lessons. And the more you undo them, you drop out of you get into a lesser dysfunctional dance as you move through that, to a place of knowing. And that deepening place of authenticity is so, it's what I believe Jesus meant when he said the meek shall inherit the earth. He wasn't talking about the weak, passive, dependent people who need to be on meds. He was talking about the people who sat in a state of grace, deepening and authentically vulnerable to self at a deepened place when I'm not giving anything up to say to you, whatever I'm feeling, whatever my insecurities are, that's who I am. And what you do with it is what I watch. And if you're empathetic and cherishing and compassionate, I'll give you a hug, I'm in. And if you're judging, shaming, sitting back, debating, intellectualizing, it's like, as I say to the people I work with, next. I'm out. I have no interest in this. And I actually teach that statement. At some point, if someone doesn't want to get you, if someone redundantly is not getting or being hurtful, it's not because you're doing something wrong. That's our sense as child. If we're not getting the unconditional instinctual love we're supposed to get, what are we doing wrong with the gods of this universe? Because there's no one there to say to you, oh, they're doing the best dysfunctional dance they can, as awful or wonderful as that is. And we just need to say, I have no more interest in this. Mm-hmm. Thanks, but no thanks.
That's it.
Because I know what I want more of, and I know what it feels like, what I don't want any more of. And that's really the essence of the teaching. If you sit in that authentic place of self, it resonates when someone's loving, and it resonates when someone's not. But what we do when someone's not is we go to judgment of what am I doing wrong? And you're not. There's nothing you're doing wrong. It really is them. And we don't teach that in society. Shame and judgment doesn't do that. It's like, what's the matter with you? And it's always this. I say to my patients, this is loaded. Don't point that. My patients, I'll go, oh, sorry, I pointed that at you. It's like, I said, I understand. It comes from where you grew up. Yeah. It's automatic.
My first meditation teacher, called Baba, he used to give an instruction. And it took me a long time to do this instruction all day.
It's not easy.
He said, when you wake up in the morning, first thing to do is destroy your world. Feel the profound silence here now, right? All the egos in the room are going, but it's an amazing practice. Because the world you're destroying is your personal world. It's your ego world. And he meant bit by bit, just go through it. Go through the relationships, the roles, the buildings, the places, the definitions of who you are and who you're not. You just destroy them. Today you can, on computers, you can see a beautiful digital graphic, and then it gets pixelated and it goes, and that's it, it's gone. It's a nice vision to use about destroying your world. So I started doing it, and I was amazed right off the bat, quickly, how much better I felt, a half hour later. That world wasn't there. I told the mind, get rid of it. And it did. And along with it, all the stress and tension that goes around with that world, right? Destroyed, it's gone. Now, does that mean that you're destroyed? No. Because you're not that person. You're being. Being can't be destroyed. It's the essence of the universe, the essence of all life. You might call it life with a capital L. Yeah? That can't be destroyed. But the structures the mind has created to account for being or describe being or get something done, or destroy them anytime you want to. Really, it's foolishness. It's just, You know, if you take any have you ever seen a video of an animal that's been put in a cage, a wild animal that's been put in a cage? There's some on YouTube and so forth. There was, what do they call them, a black leopard. You know, a black leopard. This is a YouTube video of this. And he was in some sort of zoo or, place like that. No, he's vicious. Don't go near him. So he got put in this kind of retreat for wild animals in England. And he had his own cage there. And there was a woman who could talk to this animal. And she had that ability to communicate with animals. So she sat down and communicated with him. And they had given the name Diablo. And he did not like that name. He did not want to be called that. So they changed his name right away. And then she asked him, he asked her, the woman, what happened to the 2 leopard pups that were in the next cage? Now, she didn't know that there were leopard pups in the next cage. So she asked the owner, well, yeah, there were. Well, they got given, to good places, and they're doing very well. He wanted to know about that. And the conversation kept going deeper and deeper. After something like a week or 2, they took him out of the cage. He was very vicious to begin with. Not anymore, because he was respected. The name they gave him was Spirit. He was respected as Spirit. And that's all he wanted. Yeah. Human beings are very much like animals in a cage. That's why we're so irrational. The cage is the mind. Destroy the world. Really. Destroy the barred, walls that we can't go through. Yeah. Tear them down. That's not you. It's not your being. You can leave the cage. That's the allegory of the cave in Plato's Republic, Get out of the cage of the mind. But as Gary says, that takes courage.
Yes.
It took me quite a while to warm up to that particular instruction. and yet, when I had the courage to do it, instantaneous. The mind just relaxes. Oh, I don't have to support this anymore. Oh, gone. Really interesting. I think we're at our limit, so thank you so much. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.